Once again, I have achieved first place at my locals of about 30 people for my Wednesday night locals with Kashtira Spright Adventure. This deck has been overperforming for me, and unfortunately, I won't be attending the 250th YCS this weekend. I will be actually attending a Y Shorts event with two other teammates. So hopefully, I would like to report some good news on that. But let's go over the deck list that I've been playing. This is like almost identical to what I've already been playing. 3 Ash, 1 Illegal Knight, 3 Fenrir, 2 Angler, 3 Beaver, 1 Nimble Sunfish, new edition, 3 Sprite Blue, 1 Sprite Carrot, 3 Sprite Jet, 1 Sprite Red, 2 Swat Frogs, 1 Tetsudo Newman, 1 Griffin Rider, 3 Water Enchantress, 1 Dracoback, 1 Faithful Adventure, 1 Foolish, 2 Right, 1 Smashers, 3 Starter, 1 Tactics, 1 Thrust, 3 Imperm, and 1 Double Cross. For the sideboard, we have 1 Amorphage Goliath, 2 Lancia, 1 Jinzo, 2 Nib, 1 Resonator, 1 Thunder King, 1 Duster, 2 Eradicator, 3 Evenly, and a Trap Trick. For the extra deck, we have Double Zeus, 2 Gigantic, 1 Mannequin Cat, 1 Onibaru, 1 Toad, 1 Bujinki Ashimi, 1 Dark, 1 IP, 1 Cerebus, 1 Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, 2 Sprint. So the new addition to the deck will be Nimble Sunfish. There were some games I felt I needed an extra target for Angler. After playing with this card, I don't think that's the case anymore. I would actually sideboard this card out quite a bit. I think the deck performs fine already without the extra target. But with that being said, ironically enough, I do like the deck count actually around 43 right now, because it made sideboarding a lot easier because I had just an extra card in my main deck. The difficult part I've been approaching with this deck right now is sideboarding, because you generally, for most matchups going first or second, you'll want to sideboard around 3 to 5 cards against almost every matchup. And it's very, very difficult to side out a lot of cards in this deck, because a lot of the cards in this deck are very good at going first or second. Like, Newman is an easy card to side out when you're going second, right? It does nothing. So that's like an easy card to side out. But like when you look at the deck as a whole, it's like, what else do you really side out? Like sometimes I might side out an Angler. It feels bad. I don't like siding out the Swap Frogs for a couple different reasons. It's just a solid extender. If you side out any of your Swap Frogs, it means 2 cards in your extra deck immediately become dead, basically. It means your Toad is dead and your Bujinki becomes dead. So it's like, it's hard to side out those cards. So when it comes to sideboarding with this deck, it is very difficult. And actually, ironically enough, having more cards in your main board makes it easier to sideboard overall. And I strongly believe in this format, your sideboard is what wins you tournaments right now. Like, everyone's main board, it kind of has like auto win pieces, but the sideboard is what wins tournaments right now. So speaking of the sideboard, though, we have 3 main targets since we're playing Mannequin Cat. A Amorphage Goliath can be summoned against Kashtira, and it can be summoned against the Despia deck. So 2 main matchups. The Kashtira deck, it kind of hurts them a little bit, not too much. This is a lot more impactful and more meant for the Despia matchup. For the trap matchups, we have Jinzo, since they do play dark monsters. So you can usually, when they special summon one of their guys that are dark, you can summon out Jinzo. Or it's just like an easy card to tutor out against that matchup with Mannequin Cat. And the most important card in the extra deck is for the mirror, actually, and it's Thunder King. This is just for the mirror match, but like, it's just such an impactful card in the mirror that like I just can't take it out. For the Lancias have been okay for me so far. It's mostly meant for Kashtira, and there's a good amount of Flunder at my locals. But the more I play this card, the more I'm starting not to like it. This is definitely a flex spot on the sideboard. Very cuttable. I also feel a similar way about Nib right now. It's hard to only play 2 Nib, especially when your main deck is very like you. It's not like I feel more comfortable with this at 40, but like when you're only playing 2 copies at like a 43 card deck, it's kind of like, am I really going to see this card? Is it worth sideboarding kind of thing? I opted to cut Feather Dusters for. I actually almost sideboard Feather Duster against almost every matchup at this point because like spell and trap destruction is so powerful this format that even like heavy combo decks like set up like decent back row. So this is just not a bad card for going second against almost every matchup. I'm actually not playing a lot of go first trap cards. That's for intentional purposes. I feel for decks like these, when your deck count goes up, it's harder to see like specific spell and trap cards, right? So that's why I focus more on my mannequin cat targets than I do on actual trap cards. Also, I feel D-Barrier is weaker in the format right now, with now that Sprite is more prevalent, and I never really liked it against Kashtira anyway. I feel Eradicator is just like the one of the best generic go first trap cards right now because you can easily call spells or traps, and it's like it might not hit like every card in their hand, but it slows them down enough to the point where it's like if you call spells and you already have an established board of like Griffin Rider plus other cards on board, it's very hard for them to deal with the board already. So Eradicator is like my go-to go first trap. Evenly is to I've been very back and forth on Evenly. I like want to cut this card, but at the same time I just can't because it really is just for every matchup that isn't Sprite for the most part. And then Trap Trick searches out the Eradicator and at least can search out the Imperms. For the extra deck, I think is mostly standard. There's nothing too crazy about it. I don't know how I feel about IP. Like, there's times there'll be tournaments where I never summon this card, and then there'll be other tournaments where this is like my go-to card, right? I would arguably almost cut this card completely if it wasn't for the fact it has 2 down arrows. But looking at the deck as a whole, you could arguably start cutting Tetsudo. I've considered it. It's a lot more of a win more card. I actually would rather just end on like the one of the main issues is like if you go for the Swap Frog in this deck specifically, right? If you go for the Swap Frog Tetsudo route, you can't end on both Toad and Tetsudo, right? It's like one or the other. You have to like commit to one. So that's why I've also considered like putting Reproduct. I'm not crazy about playing both this and Reproductus. I feel like I'm playing with a 12 card extra deck at that point. So it's like kind of weird, but I've considered just cutting the Tetsu already because the Floodgate 1800 is nice, but it is a little bit win more. And I would consider moving this to the sideboard and just focusing my end board being like Griffin Rider, Toad with other stuff and double cross set. Because with let's say ideally you end on like double cross Toad with Griffin Rider, and you have let's say you'll probably have a Sprind up. You'll either have your Sprind up or you'll have something with 2 down arrows, right? Because you're usually making it with the Bujinki. That usually means you have at least 3 negates because you can reborn the Toad off of double cross. I would like to fit Dark Ruler no more into the sideboard. And that's actually just mainly for the Sprite matchup. The Sprite mirror match is, especially if they're playing a version similar to this, it's very hard to deal with the board through evenly, since they do have multiple negates between like Carrot, Griffin Rider, Toad, whatever their ending board could be. And Dark Ruler is the only card that like really slows them down. If they like Dark Ruler doesn't like completely stop them, especially if you have like double cross smashers or starter set already. But like it gives Dark Ruler plus multiple extenders at least lets you help break their board a lot easier. So unfortunately, would not be going to the YCS, like I said earlier in this video. But I probably would be playing something very similar to this. If I was playing the YCS, I'd probably be cutting these 2 cards. I would highly consider playing Pot Prosperity over these 2. not. I actually hate Pot of Prosperity in this deck. I think it's terrible, but I do think seeing your sideboard cards are very important right now. And if I were to play Pot of Prosperity in this deck, I'd be changing up the sideboard quite a bit to accommodate that. I'd cut down on all the Mannequin Cat targets and play more trap card targets for multiple matchups because I do believe having an established board in your front monster row and your back row is what wins games going first. This deck can already clear boards very well going second. The amount of cards people waste just when I activate Rite of Arsamir is insane. Like, not only is this card like gives you so much advantage, but like when I go Rite of Arsamir and then like I Faithful Adventure for like a legal night, my opponents just like just start going like activate, activate, activate. The amount of cards people waste just to deal with the adventure package is absurd. I like this package. I'm in love with the adventure package right now, especially in the Sprite deck. The synergy with this and Angler is just so good. Like, and the fact that Swap can special summon my pitching Enchantress too is just like, you can't say no to that. Fenrir is mostly just been like a +1 engine. It's just a solid extender. It deals with problem cards. You could arguably cut this card to 2. I do side one out a lot depending on the matchup, but it's just a really, really solid extender. It's a solid extender. It's a +1 for your discard. If you do pitch it a lot, either up between Faithful Adventure or if you try to use Nightmare effects. But like, it's just it's a free body on board. It removes cards. This card is just like, it's too nice not to play right now. But those are my thoughts on the deck. This is the deck I've been getting first place at locals with for the most part. Let me know what you guys think. And for those attending the 250th YCS this weekend, good luck and take care.